This Wizards of the Coast game came to North America and promptly fell out of favor. Today we talk about Duel Masters. Hey there everyone, welcome to episode 2 of Dude Where's My Cards. Today we have me, myself, Brendan, and we're here with Jordan. And don't you just love when you try to intro and it just comes out as word vomit?
Me, myself,
and I, because apparently that's all that's important, even though you're here with me all the time.
Yes.
So as I was saying, today we're going to talk about Duel Masters.
Yeah, Duel Masters TCG.
Yes, Duel Masters TCG, and man, does that game ever have more of a storied history than I imagined.
It's got quite a bit going on, more than just the classic. Oh, it's a Yu-Gi-Oh clone.
I thought it was just another card game that was based off of an anime or a cartoon.
Yeah, no.
And when you dig into the history of it, yes, it is just another.
It's a card game about a card game about a card game, really.
Yeah, I mean the actual show itself was kind of weird. It kind of covered some weird themes, and you mean all those shows that have little kids doing things. It just seems kind of weird in retrospect. But at the time, it was supposed to be Wizards of Coast's way of combating the youth movement in card games, where there is Yu-Gi-Oh that had took foothold, there is Pokemon, which they had recently lost, and Pokemon Company had took over completely.
Yeah,
and they just wanted to get into the whole anime scene of.
Yeah, they really wanted to get the Japanese market for themselves.
Becoming more popular. And this one, when it came to North America, did not work out.
Mind you, this game is still popular in Japan, I'm pretty sure. It's the number 2 most card game behind Yu-Gi-Oh!
And as we're talking about Duel Masters, we're going to throw in Kaijudo into this conversation as well, because it's the exact same game rebranded so that people forget about the failures of Duel Masters.
Well, in theory,
but the truth is, it didn't fix anything. It's the exact same game.
Well, in the anime, the Duel Masters anime, the game they're playing is Kaijudo. So that's where the name kind of brings into, but that's where it ends.
But they purposely rebranded it to get rid of the Duel Masters stigma. Yeah. And yet their first series is called Kaijudo Legends of the Duel Masters or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you just put the stigma right back in there because people look at the cards and they go, oh, congratulations, you updated the design a little bit, but the cards and the gameplay is still exactly the same.
And in the, like I was telling you earlier, just off, is that in the original manga that they released the Japanese market, the Duel Masters manga, all the cards that they show are Magic the Gathering cards.
Yeah.
Before Duel Masters was a thing.
Really?
Yeah. So it's a very cheap branding that they tried to market it to somebody else, but it's the same thing.
And after playing it several times, you do see the strong resemblance to Magic. Like, the resource system is Magic through and through. Just the difference are the cards are the lands and not
it's simplified.
Having lands in your deck.
But we'll get to that. We'll get to that a little bit. So let's jump into our rubric a little bit here again. Okay. Our rating system that we've kind of determined as designers ourselves, what we like. Looking at more than just the gameplay of the game itself. We kind of start with our impression of the game. So what was your first impression of the theme of Duel Masters?
So, I mean, there's different impression. Like, I have a 5. Because I have to go back on when I first got the game in 2006. So I got to talk about the first time I got the game. It was the Game Boy Advance game. That was my first exposure to Duel Masters. And playing that as a 10, 12-year-old, how old? Then 14-year-old maybe?
Yeah.
It was a good game. And, I mean, I'm always a sucker for fantasy themes, let's be honest. Like, if it's comparable to Digimon to me in terms of the coolness of creatures doing things in that game.
Well, let's see, this is where, for me, for theme-wise, Duel Masters, my first introduction to Duel Masters was an adult. It was like 5-6 months ago when I was looking at the card games. I had no previous gameplay, no previous, experience on any digital card games for the Duel Masters. So for me, it was very lackluster to me because it's an early 90s game.
Now it's lackluster.
Yeah, so when I look at it now, I kind of looked at it and went, the theme is something that just wasn't appealing to me. It didn't feel like there's any draw in for me. So I actually rated it rather low, giving it a 2 when I looked at it straight up because the theme was not appealing to me
and if you
now.
And if you evaluate even back then what the theme was supposed to be, and you look at what their creatures are, it's kind of a mix between Yu-Gi-Oh and Digimon. Like, you get the cool creatures who kind of fight and have weapons, and you kind of mash them together, and you suddenly get flying dragons who have Gatling guns, and you have weird aquatic creatures who can transform their limbs into swords and stuff like that. And it's just kind of like they wanted, okay, so here's a popular IP market, here's a popular IP market, let's just smack them together and
see what we get.
Create a card game and see what happens.
Well, so that worked on Young Brendan. That was perfect for Young Brendan, theme-wise.
Young Brendan was a card game player. You could have said anything was a card game, and I would have been, okay, I'll give it a try.
Yeah, okay.
And that was the thing. And to be honest, when I got Duel Masters, it was we were traveling to Florida, and it was somewhere in the States. I don't even remember where we stopped. It was a Best Buy. Walked in, saw it for $40, and I said, oh, yeah, there's my allowance. Yeah, sure, let's give it a try. And I regret that the last game I had in my Game Boy before that was Fire Emblem. And I lost the game.
Oh, no.
So somehow in that transition, I got Duel Masters, and that Fire Emblem fell out of the car in the parking lot. I don't know. I must have been in such a hurry, but instant regret because Fire Emblem's a high-quality game, and Duel Masters was enjoyable, but when I tried to go back on that same trip for Fire Emblem and I couldn't find it, I was not very happy.
Okay. Jumping into our next one, we got rules. The overall rules for it. The understanding of and presentation of the rules was kind of where this, rubric sits. And so for me, it sits as a 4. It sits as because the game is actually incredibly simple, especially if you have a core understanding of card games. I'm looking at it now. I looked at it and said, yeah, this says you play this, you tap, this is resources. And it just seems simple to me. Mm-hmm. It doesn't seem like there's very much to the rules. And even in the rules, they kind of like tell it to you. It's like, okay, take 5 cards, don't look at them. Okay, now draw 5, you can look at them. Like, they're walking your hands through the entire rules, which is very nice for a starting game, I find. So I gave it a 4.
I also have it as a 4.
Look at us matching.
But it could have been lower for me years ago. When I first played, as I said, on the Game Boy, there's a lot of things in that game that you've got to learn symbols, key text, the ways they've made shortcuts in that game to try and make it smoother to play.
Okay.
But the game itself was actually taught really well in the game. But from a memory of doing it years ago, I would have been like, oh, that's a 2. It's a fairly complex game. But after, last week I downloaded the ROM and was ripping through the Senpai Legends. And I've probably put in 75 games or so.
Yeah.
75 matches. It's 4. It's an easy game to learn. The complexities to the symbols and the terms really are extremely simple. And
they were familiar to me as well because of the background with Magic.
Yeah.
It was familiar. It felt very familiar.
Yeah, and after playing it, you really find out what's really important to know. Like blockers, things that kill blockers, things that break 2 shields. That's all that things that mana ramp, but that's a whole other story.
But those are your key components. So we both sat fairly accurate with the rules on together. So next kind of goes to design and art. You have a couple of these cards here right now too that I was looking at now in person because I hadn't seen it.
These are the only Duel Masters cards I got because they came with the game. And once again, this was a trade-in for Fire Emblem.
So like I said, I look at it and it vibes a little bit to me like a Hearthstone looking card now that I see it a little bit more in person, but I have it rated as a design and art of 3. Again, the art for me didn't stand out as something phenomenal that I looked at and went, oh my god, that's incredible. And the design of the card... Could have been
if they had more art showing, though.
It's true. It was the little cube or shape that they give you isn't... And there's always explosions going on in the background. It takes away from the actual card itself. Mm-hmm. And then when I look at the text and the way that things are laid out on this card, it just didn't really sit from a design perspective as me being incredible. It works. It's functionably okay. It's not too clustered, but it also wasn't a wow factor. So I put it right in the middle for me.
Yeah. So I have it as a 4. That might have been me just being a little bit exuberant, in all honesty. Because you look at the cards in front of you and...
Mind you, these are maybe not the really cool cards maybe we're looking at.
No, and like things did get better as they went into further sets. Like this was from sets 1 and 2, I think, were available in the Senpai Legends, which means these cards are from sets 1 and 2. And even the development of this into sets 5 and 6 and into Kaijudo eventually, like their designs got better, things did get better.
I'll agree that Kajudo for me would have been probably closer to a 4.
But like I look at this and it's all right. Like
Yeah.
it's just all right. It's not like I look at it and I go, "No, this game is bad."
Yeah.
I look at it and I go, "Okay, it's a card game. It's a collectible card game."
And it gives you the right information.
And I mean, I've always been fascinated with the fact that the cards were dual purposed.
Yeah, both the resource and...
But in this sense, the dual purpose isn't a fantastic dual purpose.
It's the mana feels like an afterthought.
You run into the problem of when you balance a game like this with this design philosophy is some cards are never going to be used for anything more than mana.
Yeah.
Whether that be because their ability does something that gives them mana or gives you mana, but they'll never see the field. And to me, on a design level, that to me just feels wrong.
See, that for me, that's like familiarity, because Magic has cards that are only mana.
Yeah.
So they never anything else. So to me, it just feels
that's like
right.
lands. Like I'm talking about other creatures in Magic that are just...
Never. No.
That's what I mean. Like these are creatures. These are units you should be playing to the field. But because of the design balance in the game, some creatures will never get played to the field because their value is either so poor that even when you evaluate your hand in the best possible situation, you're never going to choose it. Okay. Or it'll have abilities that make sure you don't ever have to play it.
Okay, so it should have just been a land card rather than being a creature.
Why am I creating a card in a game that a person's not going to look at and be like, oh, I want to play that? I look at it and I go, I can throw it in and discard it whenever I want. Yeah, sure, whatever.
Okay.
It's just,
that final rating for us, the kind of complexity level of it, where does it sit? 5 being it was appropriate complexity for the game, 1 being this was way too easy or way too hard. Being that it is, a Magic-esque playable with the lands, dual purpose cards. I thought it had a pretty even weight for what they were trying to hit. They were trying to hit a younger audience, so I put it at a 3. I thought it was right in the middle, kind of again.
And I put it at a 4 just because similar tones to you were based on the audience they were looking at. I think it might have been just a little too complex, which was why...
I see. My argument is it's not complex enough because they were trying to hit, I felt they were trying to hit that market that wasn't quite playing Magic yet, which would be,
Yeah, but you're thinking about, Japan and overseas.
I'm thinking when it comes back here. Because when it comes back here, people have been playing Magic forever. The early crew, so they're trying to get the first stepping stone into it.
Yeah, and to me, imagine my first stepping stone is a 9 to 12 to 13-year-old kid.
Okay.
This might be a little too complex to understand exactly what's going on. Like a player who's good at this game and has built a good deck is going to be a steep difference from a person who is just starting the game trying to learn.
Okay.
I mean, you can say that about any game.
True, yeah.
But the reason that I think that this game is only a 4 complexity and not 5 and anything higher than that is just because of where the game evolved to. And I mean, we're going to touch on that quite a bit.
Yeah.
And the game just power creeped. There's no other way to say it. It power creeped hard.
Yeah.
And that destroyed the game.
Yeah. That's where we kind of will touch the game category. We'll look at that. We have the gameplay and depth in here. Gameplay being one of our highest ranking for us because that's important for us as the designers. How overall enjoyable is the game to people? So, for me, this is out of 10. I gave it a 6, and I gave it a 6 from the perspective of somebody who's not been a die-hard player. I'm sure some people who played this game a long time and experienced the power creep all the way through.
There are still some players that have a cult following in North America for this game.
Okay, well, I said, it's got intense. A good gameplay to it, but to me, it's not like it doesn't interest me. There's not a like where I go back into the theme. The theme
And
isn't
it's only
pulling
fitting
me
that
in.
we talk about this after our Digimon episode.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of aspects to Duel Masters that Digimon just said, thank you very much.
Yeah.
We're going to adapt that. Like,
Yeah, the 5-hit system.
The foundation was there, just the execution to follow it wasn't quite. Like, Digimon does it in a simpler way, and because of that, people are latching onto it quicker.
And this is where I kind of maybe give this game a 6, where I think personally it doesn't really give me gameplay satisfaction, but because a lot of the games that I love are only existent because of this game, I have to give it a little bit more dues than I originally took. Like, it's not a game that I'm interested in now, but I understand if this game didn't exist, some of the games I love now wouldn't have the mechanics that I enjoy. So it had the mechanics in it. It just didn't have enough to take me all the way.
And I slammed it right in a 5.
Okay, right in the middle. I think I kind of had it there, but
After playing whatever 75 games on the Game Boy Advance, and I mean, I'm only exposed to sets 1 and 2 and doing that. There's a lot of good content, but when you play games on a Game Boy, at least in my perspective, I abuse the AI systems. I know how to, they play a blocker. I'm going to purposely attack one of their shields with a unit they have no business trying to block, and they purposely do it.
Yeah.
Or I purposely sacrifice a unit into their blocker where they shouldn't be blocking so that I can attack with 3 double shield blockers to end the game.
Yeah.
Like, there's ways to abuse that. That has nothing to do with why I gave it a 5. I gave it a 5 just because it's so repetitive and slow.
Yeah, okay, the slow factor, I agree, because of the ramp of the resource
The mana
system.
ramp is slow unless you play hyper accelerated decks through the green color. I don't even remember what color they're called at this point, but the green color literally focuses on mana ramp. The card you're looking at is actually one of the mana ramp cards I like to use in the game.
The Beast Folk? No, I have no idea. But I don't know what I have no idea what the clans are.
I don't remember what the clan names are either, but like
again, theme is forgettable, unfortunately.
And that became part of the problem with the game is you mana ramp into your late game cards, and then holy crap, there's some powerful late game cards. And that to me is why the gameplay got a 5, is because sure, you could enjoy this isolated version on the Game Boy where it's just 2 sets before things got broken. But even on that, the gameplay is still stale, it's still slow. You know, when you are burning your own cards as resource, and there's very few optimal ways to draw cards, you find that you're playing with 1 or 2 cards the entire game. Unless you're playing against a stupid computer AI who just decides to attack you over and over again, break your shields, because every time you break your shield, you get to draw the card that was behind the shield. So that's how you get your draw power. So you just set up. The computer breaks my shields, gives me draw power, set up. Now I control the board and I'm going to wipe you in 1 turn.
Yeah, okay.
Like, very similar philosophy to Digimon in that sense. But I've also played rush decks where I can win by turn 3 because the opponent might not draw the right thing. So like, there are variations on what to do. The gameplay to me, once again, will be reflected by my replayability score as well. It's almost there, and that's why I like Digimon, because it kind of took the aspects that was almost there
and pushed it
changed
through.
them, modified them, or made them easier or more accessible. Would be the best term. Would be more accessible. And with this, it's average run of the mill. I enjoy it from a designer's aspect because there's a lot to learn from the game.
Well, clearly, there's a lot of things that other games took from it.
Yeah.
And ran with it in very small variations or larger as well.
And like, the weakest part of this game for me is the mana system. So go figure that Digimon changes that to a fun resource system and instantly like, I kind of like this game.
Yeah. For me, I kind of have to agree. Like, a lot of the things were there. It was like playing a half game of Magic. It wasn't quite there for me because I had been used to what it was, and I was like, this game's similar. But it's only just a dumbed down version.
It's still what you know.
Similar.
It's every turn you generate resource. Yeah. The longer you go into the game, if you consistently generated a resource, you get to play more powerful cards, more powerful combos.
Yeah. So again, we have that. The going into our depth of the game, the actual depth of it. Well, because it's a CCG, there's changes to it. It has a little bit more depth than like. Nothing out there. I kind of I gave it a right smack dab in the middle. I think I was going to rate it a little bit lower, and I took a little bit longer look into it. And I did end up giving it, I think, a 3 at the end of the day for this depth of the game.
And I gave it a 4.
Okay, well, you've had a lot more games played on it, though, too, than me. 75 back
just
to back.
because you gotta... I mean, I also have an isolated sense of what my experience is. That sets 1 and 2 were still good.
Yeah.
And the amount of strategy and variation between the colors, how to mix them. I mean, same with Magic. You can have red-blue, you could have red-black, you can have 3 different colors, you can have 4 different colors. But in this game, like 3 is pretty strong. 4, you're gone overboard. You're you're too diverse.
And I like that. The three is fair. It's better than,
But at the same time, you can still run monocolor decks and be extremely strong. You can run 2-color decks and you can still be extremely strong.
Okay.
Just the issue, like with depth, I mean, it's a CCG. It needs to have depth to keep the player coming back.
Yeah.
And I think that, as I said, the foundation to the game was good. The concepts were good. I think the execution was just off a little bit. But it's still a 4 to me. Like, you could dive in and take 300 different cards, and there's a lot of variation of strategy between them.
Okay, no, that's fair. That's a pretty reason. You've, like I said, you've 75 games. You've crushed out a lot of games very recently, so you have a very good take. You said, limited between 1 and 2 sets, which means we're almost looking at the best possible version of this game.
Well, and way of thinking of this, I think back to like Pokemon TCG. Like, I loved the first three to 5 sets, give or take. But the game has completely changed from that. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. I think Pokemon's still a good card game now. But yes, the isolated sense of, okay, my version of Duel Masters is sets 1 and 2 is going to be very different than someone who's played sets right to the end of the North American and said, "Oh, thank God this is gone."
And that's where we kind of we try to look at it as much as like we enjoyed some parts of it, but there was problems with the game, and
I know that the depth does change later on in the sets to much lower because there's only 1 or 2 meta strategies that if you didn't play, you had no existence.
Yeah. Okay.
For the last year of existence, almost every single recorded tournament recorded 70% of the same deck being played in some slight variation.
That loses so much value.
And if you didn't play that deck, you were not placing in that tournament. You were not making it to the final day. Like, it was literally this deck and some kind of modification or variant, or that's it. So everyone's playstyle was the same. Everyone's trying to draw the
just draw whatever you
one
need.
Counter card. Oh, what's the card that's different between my deck and your deck? So I'm trying to counterplay you. If I draw that, that's game.
Okay. Touching base on our post-play categories here, we got 2: replayability and cost satisfaction. Replayability is pretty straightforward. How much do we enjoy replaying this game? And cost satisfaction is how much value do we have in the game when we actually bought it, or if we were to buy it. In this case, Duel Masters was a little out of our time.
Yep.
But replayability for me, it's a CCG. There's changes, there's variants. I'd say it's a 5. It's right in the middle. I mean, I wouldn't say no to somebody wanting to play this game because it's simple, it's fun for the time. I'll play 3-4 games of it maybe, but that's where it'll stop. After 3-4 games, I'm like, all right, can we play another board game or Magic? Like, it's there. Like, I still want to play it. Now, do I only want to play it, or do I want to play it for hours? Not really. It's not enough to grab me for more than that.
And I put it as a 3.
Okay, well, you've played it a lot, so...
It is slow. The grind is real, especially on Game Boy. They have this ridiculous system where you have to... It's almost Pokemon-esque, where you have tournaments you have to enter and clear the tournaments to get the plaque or the badge or whatever it is.
Okay.
But to be able to access one of these tournaments, you have to be a certain duelist level. And you only gain duelist levels when you battle people and gain experience.
Okay.
So I could go to a place that requires me to be duelist level 20. I could clear that tournament. I can run to the next town within 3 minutes. And then they say, all right, next tournament you have to be able to duelist level 25. And to do that's like 30 games.
Okay.
So it's like, so you're telling me I got to go just like talk to a random person in town 30 times, beat them up. And then I can play in this tournament and proceed.
Play in the tournament to keep
But
going.
that has nothing to do with... That's
but
just,
it's still...
That's a tangent. So replayability for me is a 3 based on the fact the game is slow. Even more so that Digimon exists. Like, you're saying, oh, if a friend came over and said, want to play this, I'd say, no, let's play Digimon. It's the exact same game, except everything is better about it.
Yeah. Okay.
And if they ask me, oh, well, I thought you wanted to teach me Duel Masters, I'd go, let's play Digimon. All right, here's the slight variation to play Duel Masters, and we're back to Digimon.
Yeah. Okay. I see it. I'm trying to look at it as much as possible as if I didn't own any other games other than what we have.
Yeah.
So like I say, like even it's there.
But
it's
even
okay.
still, like for me, if you're hitting a 5, like then you're kind of in the middle. Like I could play it, I could not play it. And to me, if someone were to come over and out of every single game say, do you want to play Duel Masters? I'm going to try and likely tell them to pass and let's try something different or sway them or push them in a different direction.
That's fair. It's pretty reasonable, honestly. Especially with the death of the IP, it kind of is hard. But, I mean, if I had this game, if I had full decks, I'd probably be willing to play it. Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm trying to look at it. It's like, it's in the middle for me. Like, because it's still new to me, because it's, even though Digimon's similar and, Naruto and Final Fantasy, they all have these aspects of it. Like, I'd still be open to playing the game here or there if I had complete decks. I don't, but trying to take that into irrelevance, it would still be something I think I'm interested in.
Like, you say that you'd have interest if you had decks, but how many games do you have where you have a couple decks? Like, this would be at the bottom of the games where you have a couple decks.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, there's probably a dozen games in front of them that you'd rather pull out.
It's true. Okay. Maybe mine's a little inflated.
So yes, you might have it. You might be okay with playing it, but it'll be one of the ones that collects dust. It'll never get pulled out. That's
true. Okay. So then we go into the post-play category for cost satisfaction. And this is, thinking about if I was to buy it. I have it as a 2. I have it as a 2 for several reasons. One, I'd be pissed if I was an actual collector of this game because it's dead in our North American IP.
That's just value. That's not even cost satisfaction. That's Vanguard for me.
But then I get it. And the other part is like, if I'm going to sink in money into a CCG, so thinking if it was active and I was playing when it was active, am I going to get as much enjoyment out of playing this game as if I sunk that same amount of money into playing Magic or Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh? No. So to me, the cost satisfaction is really low.
Which is why it died, because eventually it ended up competing against its own product in Magic. And it wasn't doing well.
It wasn't a stepping stone. It was just taking some sales away that could be all in Magic. It was literally
almost like a Magic Light. So Magic was like, well, let's just create a new form of Magic or just release a new set for Magic and let's just ditch this. This is sucking.
And they made the right choice, I think. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a Duel Masters fan, but there's probably people out there that are choked that it doesn't exist. It does exist, mind you, like we gotta say, in the OCG across the way over the ocean. It's still an active game, like number 2 next to Yu-Gi-Oh. It's popular. Wizards did well in that market. It just, the North American, we are just more of a Magic player community than a Duel Master community.
My cost satisfaction is a 2.
Yeah, okay, right on par.
Just because, I mean, gets bumped down. I lost Fire Emblem to this game. Instant cost satisfaction destroyed. But I look at it now. I look at the prices of the game, even to jump in to go on eBay just for the sake of buying something. These games are still expensive. People are still selling them for $60 for a starter deck or something like that.
Oh my goodness, yeah. No, the inflation costs.
It's not even worth that, especially when I can download a ROM and get a sample of the game. I can go online into Tabletop Simulator like we do, and I can
play the game in the digital
game there for free.
Yeah.
And to me, it's just, why would I spend money on something that's dead?
Yeah, no, and
to something that has low replayability, to something that will bore me to death, that will sit on my shelf.
That has no interesting themes to us, that just doesn't grab. So
it'll take me a lot to get me to a 1 in the cost satisfaction.
I think so. I think I would have to have a really bad taste in my mouth personally from it.
Like, I would have had to hate myself going into it and hate myself going out of it.
Out of it. Okay. So, final score here. I have a 28 out of 50. I have it a little high due to what I really said is there's respect for this game because of what it initiated in the future and that, like, what they were trying to do. It just didn't hit for me that well. So, it's in the middle. It's not like a complete gone. It's not like a 10 or 12.
And I'm a little higher. I was surprised with a 31.
Okay, look at you.
I honestly
trashed it more than me, but you still got
when rating this game that a score would end up lower, but the basic elements to the game, the theme, the rules, the basic design, the
From a
complexity
design
levels,
aspect, it's a little higher.
There were some scores that were pretty good. It's just unfortunate that for me, in the two categories that matter most, it scored 8 out of 20.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's
okay.
why when we look to cash or trash, unfortunately,
It's trash for me.
I have trash written down, but I have to have a caveat to it.
Oh, you have a
because-
caveat. Mine's straight trash.
Because as a designer, as a person who is looking for the education front on games,
Okay.
it's a good thing to get dabble into. It's a good thing to see and experience. If you're going from a pure enjoyment standpoint of a consumer saying, I want to play a game, yeah,
It's a pass.
It's a pass.
I think everybody should always look from a design perspective. I think it's still trash. I don't think you should buy it in any aspect or play it.
Mm-hmm.
I think from a design aspect, I think every designer who's looking to make a card game should look at the rules and see what this game did right, but also take a look at what they did wrong. This North American, Wizards, when they took this game, Wizards has a fantastic.
This is a good company.
It's a company that has a
Who
great
does
experience
most things
doing
right.
card games and ban lists, and they dropped the ball on the ban list for the North American. They made it basically one deck viability at the end, which is what killed it.
But it's because they didn't truly care about the game.
It wasn't.
It was supposed to leap everyone to Magic.
Yeah.
And when it stopped doing that or never did do that, and the marketing became too expensive and the shareholders in the company were saying, what the heck are you doing? Guess what? There goes the plug and the game's gone.
Yeah, keep it going where it's making money, but get rid of it in this North American aspect.
So yeah, straight, mostly trash.
Yeah, great aspects to it from a design perspective, but from a truly enjoyment of a player, I wouldn't touch it. Just leave it be for now.
Yeah.
Let it collect dust on someone else's shelf.
Well, as I said, these cards that I pulled out when I got in 2006, like these things are in mint condition. Like they still have their natural round shape that came out of the packaging because they've been sitting in dust somewhere that I wouldn't have found unless
we were doing
I
this.
cleaned. Well, I know I went to clean up my stuff at my mom's place because she made me finally move out everything to our house because I didn't want to put my stuff into our house. Like let that stuff just rot there, and I had to clean it out and found this, and I was like, oh, this is perfect timing.
Okay. Well, like I said, I got no other real notes on this one. What about yourself, Brennan?
No, the only notes I really had for this one is that the game had a lot of potential. I said it had solid base. It just didn't transition its fundamental decisions into something that was enjoyable for a North American audience.
The theme for me really fell flat. Like I didn't feel like the names of these creatures and the themes of the creatures were just very just like, let's throw popular stuff together and give it like a metal man name, like very generic. Like it didn't
I could point at you and I could say, Yu-Gi-Oh! Name a monster, go.
Blue Eyes.
Perfect. That's what everyone says. There is not a single card in this game that anyone would say is comparable to Blue Eyes, except for the card. I can't remember the card's name right now.
But you can't remember.
That was so broken that it literally defined the meta of the game until it died.
So there you go. But like what do we got here? Like Bronze Arm Tribe. Like that's not a creature name to me. Like that's just a name for a theme. Or Rotbus the Traveler. Like what is? It just doesn't have a draw to me. It's not like Blue Eyes White Dragon. Or
Red Eyes Black Dragon.
or Magician.
Dark Magician.
Dark Magician.
Dark Magician
Like
Girl.
even that's
Yeah.
a simple name, but like it's like, oh, what's that? That's very cool.
They did such a good job at marketing their key characters. I mean, the anime was successful, let's be honest. That's a huge driving point.
Yeah. And we were talking about an anime that's based on a card game. It's very similar to Yu-Gi-Oh! In that aspect. It's a card game of an anime based of a card game. And it just falls flat to me.
Yeah. So, I mean, but based on that, Duel Masters, trash.
Yeah, agreed. Trash.
Go play Digimon instead. Get the better experience, but a similar experience.
Yeah, I agree. There's much better games out there right now.
Yeah.
So, that's it.
Close the notes.
Close notes. That's it.
That's it. All right. Well, I guess thanks for taking a listen again, and tune in next time. Thank you for tuning in to the DWMC podcast, a Paragon Professional Services production. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you have any comments or concerns about what you have heard, send us an email, contact@paragonstudiosmb.com. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you consume your podcasts, and leave a comment with a 5-star review if you feel so inclined. For those of you watching on YouTube, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment below.